Guys, we're relatively tight on time, but we want to give you plenty of time to talk about what you do. So start with Simon. If you'd like to introduce yourself and talk a bit about what you do, get that over to the audience, please.
Sure, so I'm Simon Barratt from Cooperative Innovations. Worked in the games industry for 20 years. Last 2.5 years I've been running a virtual reality and augmented reality development studio. So we work with all kinds of industries, so everything from training, architects, healthcare, as well as entertainment and games as well. So we produce content for virtual reality headsets, for augmented reality, for the headsets that are coming in the future, as well as for phones and tablets. And yeah, we work with a wide range of people providing tools, technologies and services to those people.
Anna, do you mind?
No, of course. I'm Anna Sutton. I'm from a company called The Data Shed. I set it up about 5 years ago with my business partner. We set up to build our own software, but as a result we wanted to be self-funded, so we actually now have a very successful data consultancy and no product. I'll talk to you about that a bit later. We work with clients like the Tate and Hermes. We help them integrate their data sets internally, so with the Tate they have at least 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 different sources of customer data. So they have ticket buyers, members, patrons, donors, online purchases, and they're all held in different data sets. So we pull them all together to now allow them to analyse and understand their customers better. And with Hermes, they have all their different data sets in lots of different places to understand the health of their delivery network. So what we did was help them pull all that together, so they had real-time insight into how their system was working in that day, in that moment. So if they had a problem, they could fix it today, rather than looking back at it, go, that was a problem yesterday, we'll go and fix that now, and it costing them a lot more money. So we do all kinds of different things with data. So it just depends on what the problem is.
Danny?
Hi, I'm Danny. I created a business within a record label. So I work with social media influencers and bloggers, helping to kind of promote our records via social media. I've worked with artists like Bryan Adams, Sting, Rolling Stones. Basically, it's either creating content with our artists, so you can get content that lives online forever on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or it can be as simple as swiping up to listen to a record online. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell.
And finally, the man with the Britney mic, the man, the legend, the haircut that is Mike Henderson. Mike, over to you.
Hi, I'm Mike Henderson, and I've got 3 hats. Core business, Wristbox, founded that about 5 years ago. Commercial insurance broker focused on the creative and tech industry. Things like IP, cyber risk, data risks, all that sort of stuff. But then the fun stuff, also with the delightful Steve, we run the Bulletproof Agency Network, which is producing events, podcasts, content and stuff for the sector to which Wristbox is focused, which is the agency sort of creative type sector. And finally, I spend a lot of time on the various industry bodies trying to sort of help out the different businesses in there, such as the Manchester Publicity Association and Creative Pro Manchester and stuff. So 3 distinct hats, but all sort of converging on the same sort of thing. And it's a lot of fun.
He's right, it is an awful lot of fun. But just drilling down into that a little bit more, we've heard kind of the headlines. I'm keen to get into the bit of the detail here. Simon, VR and AR has been talked about and pitched as the next big thing for a very, very long time in a number of different industries. Are we now at the point where it's mainstream? Have we got to the tipping point, or have we got a while?
I think we're slowly getting there. I think Lexi showed the search terms in terms of deal investment and searches and stuff. We're definitely at the trough of disillusionment right now in terms of virtual reality, where we've had the big hype cycle and everything else, and now we're slowly seeing the price points come down to the headsets and all that kind of stuff, where the technology is still getting better, but the price has to also come down at the same time. And we're just going to slowly see more and more of these things occurring now. So Apple have got several thousand engineers working on their AR headset, for instance. That hasn't been announced yet. Obviously, Google invested billions into it. Facebook invested billions into virtual reality with their purchase of Oculus. And so more and more of these things are starting to occur with the big companies realizing that in the future we're going to have virtual reality and augmented reality both everywhere. So certainly the sort of investment we've been raising and the client interest, especially on the enterprise side, so businesses working with us, is increasing every year basically. I think the consumer market is still a little bit behind that in terms of gamers who are playing virtual reality games rather than playing on the traditional PlayStation and TV screen. But that's just going to happen in the future, whether it's headset or contact lenses or implants at some point, I guess.
It's a scary and a fascinating thought all at the same time. But on the
Very
theme
Black
of,
Mirror.
indeed. On the theme of hype, Danny, I mean, influencer marketing maybe lends itself better to music than it does other industries. I mean, Lexi talked about ROI before. How easy do you find it to generate real ROI out of the kind of work that you're doing?
It's really interesting. I think when I first started doing this 3 years ago, I kind of associated it with PR, like how many eyes are going to be able to see what they're posting about. And in the beginning, it was very much based on kind of just incorporating music into content that was already being created online. So that could be anything from an extreme sports video that lends itself to a really heavy rock song. Like, do people then go find that rock song just because it's been credited in the caption? Who knows? You could never tell. What I'm finding now that is actually more efficient is when they're doing this kind of content, if they have an Instagram profile, you can do in your Instagram stories now a swipe up to listen. So they can swipe up and we can use a trackable link to actually track who is going through to listen to the song on Spotify or iTunes. Now, it's actually interesting, the ones that resonate with people. If I get someone to share a music video on their profile, the click-throughs of swipe ups are tiny. No one wants to see it because it disrupts the feed of someone's natural content that they're creating. If it feels unnatural, people aren't going to invest in it. Whereas I've got a guy that I work with who does a thing called Daily Dance on his Instagram profile where he just dances to a song every day and uploads it. Now,
What a life.
Rather than me saying, here's an asset for you to use, to post about it, I'm saying to him, I want to come into your world and incorporate our music into your world, and I think it just resonates a lot better. And yeah, the return on investment is just massive. Like, every time I do it, he's getting thousands of clicks to listen to the song. It's great.
But think about the audience we've got in the room. Is that kind of audience to back catalogue stuff? Is it weighted more towards newer artists, upcoming artists?
It's relevant to everything. I work with a woman online called Antonella, the Uncensored Reviewer. I don't know if any of you have heard of her. She's this northern woman who just does really kind of savage reviews of anything. She's like 40 years old. I gave her we did the Mamma Mia 2 soundtrack, which was amazing, with all ABBA songs, obviously, and gave her the CD to review in advance on Facebook. And she was actually quite savage on a couple of the songs and said she hated them. But even when they're doing that, 'cause it's real, it's authentic, we got 2 million views off of the back of that. That's 2 million people watching a video of a woman reviewing an album. It's great.
One can only hope. One can only hope we might get a few more savage reviews of Mamma Mia 2 in this room. There we go. Anna, just turn to you for a second. The four-letter buzzword has already made its way into the conversation. That's general decline in productive revenue, GDPR. Yep. So, big data. Again, talking about hype, bit of an overused buzzword. What does this really mean to you? What's the real opportunity of it for a business?
I think this is where our philosophy comes in because, excuse my language, but we like to cut the crap in the data shed because there are so many buzzwords and there are so many different things to talk about, but actually all that really matters is what drives revenue for a business and what drives value. So it's actually about, and Lexi, you touched on this, how much data there actually is out there and how much is generated more and more and more every day. Not all that data is needed to actually gain relevant and useful insight. It's about picking what is useful and combining that with something else that's useful and creating an actual KPI that is really, really relevant and really has strong foundations when you pull all the data together. And basing decisions on flaky data is a very risky business. So it's all about pulling it together and making sure it's compliant and safe and secure. So yes, cloud computing, pen testing, all of this stuff, everything has to be held in a way that means nobody can get at your data. And if you're holding it up in the cloud, then that can be a risky business and you have to work with people that know what they're doing. So yes, there are loads and loads of buzzwords and we'll keep coming back to this today, I think, actually about the language and the words that are used in business and how you have to keep on top of it. I mean, I don't know what all the words are in technology and in data, and my team coming to me with all kinds of nerdy words all the time. I'm like, stop it, talk to me in real language, I can't, no. What does that actually mean, and how is it going to drive value for our clients? And yes, how do we make it GDPR compliant? Absolutely 100%, but that again comes down to the security of your data, the quality of your data, and how you're holding it and making sure you're looking after it. It is as simple as that, really.
And we're going to come onto the issue of risk with Mike in a minute, but do clients get the risk versus the opportunity of big data now, or has May 25th kind of scared a lot of people into paralysis?
I think it depends on who you're talking to. So some people have a more relaxed approach to GDPR, which we obviously advise them very strongly against, but you can only say so much before you end up having a big row, and that's not a good idea with a client. I mean, we make our position very strong, and if we see one of our clients breaching GDPR, then we will obviously tell them and give them advice about how to bring it back in. On the flip side, in terms of big data, I think everybody knows that big data exists, and everyone knows that all this data is out there, and everyone wants to harness it, but the question is how, and how to make it relevant for them. So a lot of our consultancy projects are about going in and going, right, what do you actually have, and what do you want to know, and where do you want to go with it, and actually, is this investment relevant for you? And actually 9 times out of 10, you don't have to spend the millions of pounds to actually get the insight. You only have to spend a small portion of that to get a little bit further, and then you are much better informed about your options and your choices before you actually go the whole hog and harness everything and bring it all into a massive data lake or whatever you want to call it. It is about small steps and understanding what you have and making sure that it is driving revenue and value at every point.
So thinking about managing that risk, Mike, you've succeeded admirably in making insurance interesting.
Not possible.
No, you have. You really have. But you came out of big corporate brokers, big corporate insurance. I mean, what led you to take the first step out on your own?
A couple of reasons. Insurance is probably still one of the... It's quite way behind a lot of the other industries. But one thing that's true in insurance is probably true in a lot of other sort of corporate sectors is that it feels like there's a lack of value for the individual. So one of my first jobs I got at an insurer, had the pleasure of being made redundant and feeling just how that makes you feel, even if you know that at a young age I could easily get another job elsewhere, and that wasn't necessarily an issue for me, but I saw how that affected other people around me within the business who were more experienced, who owned shares in that business, who had a lot more vested in there, with family, a lot more commitments. And they weren't really, there was no real care. So what really surprised me throughout the industry was that you'd go to all the other different businesses within there, the other different insurers, the other different brokers, and they were the same. So you'd get certain insurers, who obviously I won't name because I do not want to get sued, who every 2 years, right, you've all got to apply for your jobs again. And it's just not right. So the idea is one day I wanted to be able to build something with a certain culture and certain ethics. And the other reason, I wanted to build up my own pension. So my business is effectively my pension because we all see the demographics as to what's going to happen in the next 30, 40, 50 years and why we all need to get our own pensions. So, yeah. But
what insights can you share about the power of being niche as opposed to the power of being big? What's that led to for you?
Being niche, so first off, it's a lot harder to start off with. So you have to put both feet in and go for it. So if you look at one of the hats that I wear, the things that we do to be within the industry and to get involved with the industry is specific so that we get known for things other than what we deliver, which is the insurance. So we get to know all the different people that way. But then there's the extra hard work of, this is as smart as I dress, because most of the people I will speak to will think if I'm wearing a suit, I'm going to be Steve, I'm going to be a lawyer, and they probably think they're in trouble for something. So I spend most of my time, maybe not in flip-flops, but wearing certain clothes. I use certain software, I talk certain ways, I work from certain places, so certain different workplaces where my clients are going to be, and you get fully ingrained in that. And that is hard. That is definitely hard to do. But once you've done that and you've built a niche and assuming it's something you enjoy and you love, it flips around. So now, running the business as we are, we're at capacity without any real effort. I mean, we don't have to go out and get business. Business is coming to us because we are seen as the expert, as the specialist, even though theoretically any other broker could do it if they have the time to do it. So it's really hard to start off to build a niche, but once you've done it, it's a lot more rewarding, it's a lot easier, and you get the kudos as well. You've got that sort of nice intrinsic sort of a reward of knowing that, you know, you are, what you're saying is valued and appreciated by the people you're trying to help.
Inspirational stuff as ever, Mike. So, Simon, you're going to have to follow that. And tell us, if you wouldn't mind, about an area where VR and AR really has made a bit of a difference, has moved the needle, sort of more on a hard-edged side.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for us, coming from the sort of gaming background and all the technologies we've had, which then apply to these other industries, is almost how we sell that, because there's so many different applications of that technology. So, for instance, one of our base piece of technology is to be able to make a full body avatar of someone, and we can simulate where their eyes are looking, the mouth movement when they're talking, all the voice chat you'd expect from something like Skype. But we can do that with an actual 3D representation of a person in a virtual world, all connected online. So, for instance, we've taken an architectural model from a CAD design, we've built out this virtual building that doesn't exist yet, and then we can have a salesperson be online in that same building as someone else who's around the world, and they can be pointing out things and saying, well, this could be your office here, and this could be your desk, and that's going to be your view, and sort of selling that stuff online in a way of something that couldn't be done right now. And that applies to things that exist already as well, so it could be just saving on the flight, or, you know, the jet lag and everything that goes with travelling. So again, as Lexi said before with the immersive chat, the sort of benefits of one piece of technology of enabling multiple people in the same immersive space together, whether that's for fun or for business use cases, it's just huge, really. So our kind of problem is, how do we find something that a certain industry or a certain company, what is the solution that fits them best, or is it just a discussion to work out what their current problems are, what their current processes are, and then we try and fit into that to work out what the best solution is for them. So yeah, interesting to do, but exciting.
And just on the theme of hard-edged capitalism then, Danny, so how, you talked a bit about ROI and driving viewers potentially to streaming platforms and so on. How easy is it to explain maybe to artists who haven't grown up in the streaming age how someone viewing, say, an Instagram story is then going to lead to them selling one more physical album?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of internal PR. A lot of the time when I first started doing this, it wasn't really a thing. It was really prominent in fashion. Like, a lot of fashion influencers were around, but no one was really doing it in music. I think particularly when you're working with, I'm not going to name the artist, but some artist managers who have been around a long time.
We need to hear the thud of names dropping here, Danny, right?
You can probably imagine from the names I've said, like the types of artists that have been in the industry when it's just print press, it's buying CDs and vinyl. Like, it took a lot for them just to understand how Spotify was a thing. So never mind when I come in and tell them, oh, if you give a song to this kid, then he'll make you like 10,000 records or whatever. It's been really difficult. I think the best thing to do, I always get them in for a meeting whenever we sign. If we sign an artist that's maybe older, I will always get them in for a one-on-one meeting to kind of explain what I do. I'll never ever force it either. I'll always say, these are the options. We can create content with these guys. I can pitch it out to these guys. Like, it's never a forced thing. I think when you tell someone that my job is part of your marketing mix now, it instantly puts them off. So yeah, give them a choice.
But I suppose in your case, you made your own role, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I made my own role 3 years ago. I think, yeah, it was just in a reaction to what was happening in the fashion industry. I personally found myself buying things online via other people. I wasn't buying it through kind of traditional means, I guess. So I thought, well, why isn't anyone doing that in music? I was the first person to do it at a record label. And then other record labels have now kind of copied what I'm doing.
And from your perspective, how do you rationalise, say, giving more weight to what an influencer would say opposed to a music critic?
I think that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. I kind of use a lot of analytics to decide who who to go with. There are some people that could be relevant one month and then not as relevant the next month. So if we have got an artist, a brand new artist, young, with no followers, and they're like, oh, my favourite artist is this person, I can analyse that artist and see who follows them. I use a tool called Social Rank, which can rank any Instagram profile online based on how influential they are. And influence doesn't necessarily mean followers a lot of the time. You could have 1 million followers, like a lot of the people on Love Island and all the reality TV shows have so many followers, but their influence is tiny in comparison to... There's a transgender activist that I work with who has incredible influence in music because she started off as a DJ, and like if someone has a voice, like a lot of the time they seem to, if you're a voice rather than just a person that puts up pretty pictures, it's so much better to use.
So if you take nothing else positive from the day, Love Island really isn't making that much of a difference in the world. But clumsily segueing along the theme of analytics again, Anna, how easy do you find it if you're walking into a business and they've just got loads and loads and loads of unstructured data and they think they've got something valuable? How easy do you find that to wrangle into something useful for them?
Well, I wouldn't. I'd send my business partner for a start.
Fine answer.
But no, I think it's not about understanding what they have. It's about understanding what their problem is. So often what will happen is a client will ring us up, or a potential client will get talking, or whatever way we've made the connection, will go, well, I think I need one of these, X, data lake, data vault, whatever, because you know, that's what I've read and that's what we want. And actually what we find is we'll go in and we'll spend a lot of time, we'll send one of our BAs in, or we'll go in and we'll talk to them, and we'll spend a lot of time getting to grips with what the actual problem is, and it often is, well, I need to know this, or I'm really worried about the quality of this data over here, or this isn't fast enough, or we're not getting the insight fast enough. There's always a problem that is causing them to talk to us about the solution that they've brought to the table. And once we understand what the problem is, then we can get to grips with what they actually really need, and then that then forces the dialogue about, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? How about we tackle it this way? And actually, this is going to save you money, because if you want one of those over there, it's going to cost you £500,000. If you have one of these over here, it's going to cost you 150. So, and then obviously that gets the conversation going a lot faster. But it is just about making sure that we have conversation. If we can't have conversation, then we can't work with that client. So, and it is as simple as walking away. And it's not something we choose to do very often, but if there isn't the chemistry and we can't help somebody, we're not going to stand there and build them something that they don't want and they don't need, because what that will do is in 3 years' time, when they turn around to us and go, well, we've spent £500,000 with you and it hasn't fixed our problem, we're like, well, we can't go, well, we told you so, because it just doesn't work that way. It works in the playground, not anymore at nearly 40 years old. So it is about having honest dialogue about what the problem actually is, and being able to have that conversation, and then walking away if it isn't going to come to a solution that is useful for the client.
But we're looking at big scary numbers there. How scalable up and down is what you do?
Oh, very. Thank you for that, because actually we're about to launch a product.
It's like we planned this in advance.
Yes. So one of the reasons we set up the business in the first place was to build a software as a service product. Now, again, this is technical jargon, so what that means is basically you go in and you pay for it month by month, and the software is delivered to your desktop, and you get as many seats as you pay for, but it means that you're not paying for a long-term in-house solution. What we're doing is we're building this product so that anyone, non-technical, technical either, can go and load their data sets into a software as a solution, so it actually pulls all the different data sets into one place and gives you a single custom view out of the back of it, and you pay for that month in, month out, for as long as you need it. And what happens is we'll charge you based on the number of records that you have in that system. That will be, well, we're talking less than £1,000 a month, much, much less. It's just a license fee. It depends on how many records there are. At the very basic level, it will be free, because actually what we believe in is giving people the access to their data rather than actually rinsing them for loads of money, although profit's always nice. What we want to get to is actually a place where people can get in and access the data at a level that is relevant for them, and then if they then need to spend money on their own bespoke solution, then we can talk to them about it, and that will drive revenue into the consultancy. This is the problem that I'll be talking about later, about the switch between consultancy into product. But yes, there are all singing, all dancing Oracle solutions out there that will cost you way more money than I've been talking about in this talk. That they can cost out millions even. Or you can have a smaller solution. It just depends on what you need and how much data you have and what you're prepared to invest in and how much value. Again, if it's not going to drive the value off the back of it, then why are you investing in it? It all comes back to ROI.
And on that point, so Mike, thinking about Lexi's millennials audience, does the insurance business model really work in the 21st century? Do millennials get the need for insurance? And what are you doing to fix it, Mike?
Nothing. No, Lexi was spot on with one of the key things, which is the change in the demographics of millennials particularly. It's easy to insure stuff when you have stuff. So if you own a house, you can insure a house, great. If you rent, you can insure your car. Well, if not, if you're just going to take an Uber and you don't really need a car. And the same, what's the point in insuring your record collection if everything's on Spotify, or insuring your DVD collection if you're watching Netflix? It's a completely different world. So insurance as itself is going to change, and there have been some attempts by different insurers to try and cater for that gap, but I've not seen anything that I think is anything more than a bit of lip service, a bit similar to the old days where we're talking about half a dozen years ago, where someone would say, we need an app, what's it going to do? It's going to have all our contact details on. Well, that's pretty pointless. But there's a lot of insurers and brokers who want to get involved in something because they feel that it's going to change, but they don't quite know how it is, and they don't really quite get how the millennials actually think and operate, as Lexi touched on before.
I suppose there's a hint of that in the car insurance app, where you stick it in your phone and it tells you how well or not you drive. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Assuming people would want that app.
I mean, one of my poor colleagues has to deal with our very, very few number of motor clients, and basically the motor underwriters we deal with are not necessarily the most personable people you can deal with. And I keep having to remind them to be extra nice, because unfortunately, motor insurance as it is, well, it's not going to exist. 20, 30, 40 years, however long it will be, whether we like it or not, I'm definitely of the view that driverless cars are going to happen. How it's going to happen, how long it'll take, what different things will happen on the road to it, that's debatable, but it is going to change, and that whole insurance industry, which is reliant on that motor insurance industry, is going to change, and in its current state, it'll disappear and something else will replace it.
So on that point then, Simon, thinking about, I'm going to ask you all to talk about the challenges you're facing, because that's what today's about ultimately. Simon, with your background, you could do pretty much whatever you want to, couldn't you, really? When you set up a business, I mean, what challenge, you talked about the challenges that you solve people, but what are you getting to grips with within your own business right now?
So a couple of things really. I think one is the applying our technology, as I said before, to other industries. The other thing is we've just taken on investment for the first time. So I ran a studio for 10 years beforehand. We got to about 35 people plus contractors. So that was very much just bootstrapped and just fed the profits back in year after year. And so yeah, learning to work with boards at some point will be interesting as we grow the company and sort of look at Series A funding and stuff next year. Yeah, kind of all the growth challenges, I guess, and just how we approach these other industries that maybe do have different approaches to business, and how they see how our technologies can fit in for what they do, even though it's not really been a thing before. It is definitely useful tech for them.
So do you feel like you're just sort of right at the top of the upward of the curve, that you're just sort of reaching the wave of it now?
Yeah, I think the challenge I've got is not to try and do everything at once. So it's to focus on where the real return of investment is for us. So certainly architecture is a big thing, and people are doing sort of 360 camera capture, and you'll see these all the time now where you can view a different room that already exists. It's like that's a fairly low business model for us. That's not really playing to all of our strengths in terms of what we can do interactive virtual reality. We can actually drag things around and move things, and you could walk in and trash a place if we built it in VR and it wouldn't matter, but that's not quite the same as just being stood in one spot and just viewing the same room you're in. So we're kind of at the high end of what we can do with our technology. So what is the best use case for that? What is the best business case for that for us, but also for the people we're working with?
But it'd be fairly easy for a lot of people, I think, in this room and more widespread to say, well, the business you're in, people will just throw money at you, won't they?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, games, to be honest, we're probably making more money in games right now as a business, because I think games is really booming with Fortnite and sort of the other big games that are there. So we're turning down sort of non-VR games all the time because of the background that my co-founder and I have of sort of 45 years of industry experience between us. And I think VR, we just know it's just on that wave ready to tip with all the stuff that's happening. You know, the sort of market is predicted to be about $35 billion by 2025 in terms of this sort of steady software growth. That's just purely software alone. And you know, if we can license into that market and take 1% of that kind of revenue, then you know the growth of the business is huge. It's just providing the technology and the solutions that can enable other developers to service all of these different companies for us effectively.
And Danny, people will look at you and think you lead a bit of a charmed life. I think it's fair to say. You know, what challenges? Because you do. What challenges are you getting to grips with in your day today?
I guess it comes in two different sections. With the music industry in general, with my particular role, is copyright. It's a huge thing. My argument is when you get a song on the John Lewis advert, that song is going to rocket up the iTunes chart. I got approached by a particular Formula One driver to want to use my song on one of his Instagram posts, and it got blocked because they were like, well, you can't do that because it's got a brand involved. Therefore, it goes to the sync team who will then charge Lewis Hamilton. Oh, God, I shouldn't have said his name. God.
Clang. There you go.
Yeah,
that's a name
blocked
dropping.
out. He would have to pay us £10,000 to use the song. Where it's like that kind of grey area of, well, you're going to be promoting our song, but then you've got a brand involved. So is the brand getting business because of the cool song that you're using? It's that grey area. And then the second thing is identifying who, like the amount of people online, how do you identify who is useful to your artist? And not even just that, how do you keep up that relationship? Like there are new people on social media all the time that you discover. How do you group those people? Say you've got one person who's particularly relevant to one artist. That artist might release a song once a year. How do I keep that relationship with this person so that they will help me again in the future? Like it's really difficult to maintain the relationships, I guess.
But it's interesting to hear you talk about the challenge of that relationship, and the copyright point I suppose you're coming to is a licensing model, as opposed to we assume that everyone is going to rip off our music so we can't make any money out of it. But you've got Instagram, which is this platform geared to this audience, and yet can't make this make sense in a way where someone can easily earn money from it, and they will understand the commercial opportunity in that, the same way maybe that Facebook has over the last few years and other networks maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, do you work a lot with them to try and change the thinking? I mean, we've got Article 13 on the horizon.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky that I've got a lot of people supporting what I'm doing. A few months ago, I finally kind of got this. I'm under the umbrella of Universal Music, and I got the sign off from the team in America to kind of allow me to start doing this kind of thing more. It's a long process, but I've got the process in place now, which allows me to work with people to promote a record as long as there isn't any brand involvement. I can even now get a reduced rate if there is a brand involved, because they see that there is benefits on both sides. It helps us and it helps them, I guess, as well.
But the John Lewis example is great, isn't it? Because you look at what Tom Adele got a few years ago on being in that ad, and
then he will have got paid a fortune to get his song in that ad. It's kind of, it's great for the artist.
But of course, that's distilling an artist down into a song as a product, as you would consultancy.
Exactly, and I think that's why I do a lot of stuff with content with artists and influencers. So you could have, there's a big YouTube channel called PAQ, growing rapidly for kids that are kind of fashion influencers. Their watch through rate on YouTube is kind of second to none. Like people are watching 90% of a 20-minute video on YouTube, which is not what you get on Instagram. Like it's very much swipe up and swipe across, and it's not very engaged. I put an artist on this YouTube channel, and their followers on Instagram shoot up the day that they're on that channel. They even did something with a branded piece with Just Eat, where they had to, the task was to redesign the Just Eat outfit, their uniform. So 4 kids designing 4 different uniforms for and then they posted it on YouTube on Saturday afternoon. So by Saturday night in the UK, all the people buying Sutton Just Be is shot up. Like, great.
Did they use the outfits?
Probably not.
Moving on. Anna, so
Yes.
talking about distilling, as I said before, an idea down into a product. I mean, what's your big challenge? How are you moving away from just being a people business to then maybe able to use tech to scale up
Yeah,
your own
so
business?
our big challenge at the moment is that, well, we've been going for 5 years. The consultancy has just completely blown the product development out of the water, because every time we've won a new client, we've had to basically steal all the devs off the product team, move them onto the client work, and then when we've slowed down a bit, then move them back again. So the product development has been very hit and miss. We made the decision at the beginning of this year that we were going to put a full-time team on it, otherwise we were never going to get there, and Ed and I didn't sign up for running a consultancy for the rest of our lives. We really wanted to work in the product world. We're almost there. The product is in test at the moment and will be across the line. So the team tell me next week, but we will see. What the current challenge is, however, is obviously the product has been seen very much as almost like an exercise within the business for the last 3 or 4 years, and the consultancy has been the fee earner ticking alongside, and obviously we're very much a service business at the moment. We need to switch our mindset and flip the way that the business is structured to support the product being the lead and feeding the consultancy, and I have no idea how we're going to do that. I mean, Ed and I are winging it all day, every day. I mean, we've never run a business before. We've been doing it for 5 years. Yes, we're winging it with more insight than we had 5 years ago, but we rely very much on external mentors to get insight into how to handle these challenges, because I have no idea. So this is kind of the challenge that we'll be talking about later, I think, on the table, is how do we actually flip a business structure while in motion without damaging the business structure that is currently in place. And I suspect it's probably a challenge that quite a lot of you have dealt with in the past.
No pressure, anyone who's on Anna's table. But Mike, from your perspective, you've obviously got a big emphasis on culture, and who you are runs all the way through the business. What's your biggest challenge in scaling what you're looking to do over the next few years?
Getting the right people. That's definitely going to be the hardest thing, because I'm very, very particular about what we deliver and how it's done, and how we treat people, and not just looking within the little insurance bubble of, well, you get a policy, you pay your premium, boxes are ticked. It's about the end result of how you actually affect the people who are buying the insurance in the first place, and what would happen if something goes wrong. What really happens to them, what happens to the people around them, what happens to the business, what happens to their future. It's huge, and there's not enough people who seem to think beyond that. So I find it really hard to get the right people who have the right attitude, the right culture, the ability to learn, and that's not just, that doesn't mean that, you get someone in from the ground and then they learn. There's people who will come from other different industries and other different sectors who will need to do exactly the same. So there needs to be that willingness to learn. But it all just sort of revolves back to the same thing. It's getting the right people, and that's really hard.
So on the theme of really hard stuff, this is where this turns a bit into Dragon's Den, really, and all of you get to play Alan Sugar if you were into that kind of thing. We're going to ask everyone now to pitch themselves to you in terms of what they're looking for from you today, in terms of what they're looking for, why they're here today. Simon, no time like the present?
Sure, yes. So I'd be looking for any support from people from different industries who want to learn about virtual reality and augmented reality, what it could offer, and in kind then how we would integrate into that particular industry or businesses that you've got experience of.
Danny, what do you need? Apart from coffee.
I think I'm in a particularly transitional period in my life right now where I feel like a kid, but also I'm becoming an adult. And mine's probably different to all you guys. Mine's actually how to be more assertive. Like I need, now that I'm about to kind of go off and do my own thing a bit more, I actually really struggle, like you were saying earlier, with that kind of that real connection and that one-on-one relationship with people and looking people in the eye and kind of explaining myself articulately. I think I struggle when I'm in a room to, if I want business from someone, to ask for that business, I guess. That's what I want to learn. It's more of a personality thing, I guess.
Okay, Anna, over to you.
So in terms of our product launch, we are looking very much at the mergers and acquisitions markets, because at the moment the product is very much focused on customer data. It will eventually pull in extra sets, but we're going small to start off with. And we want to understand how we pitch our products to understand pre-merger. You've got company A, you've got company B. Actually, you can pump both sets of customers and you can actually work out what the overlap is, and actually, are you just buying a whole new set of the same customers, or are you actually investing in a business that has a bigger range of customers and will bring a bigger asset to your business? And then post-merger, actually, how do we talk to these people about how we get in there and help them with their data problems? Because post-merger, we have heard, we went through a round of funding at the beginning of this year. Post-merger, we have heard that is a significant problem. Every angel investor that we spoke to was like, this is brilliant. What I need to know is, how do I find these people? How do I talk to them? And how do I sell it in there? Because B2B marketing is not something I've ever done before. And certainly working with investors and that market is something I have no experience of whatsoever. So that's my challenge at the moment.
How about you, Mike?
Mine comes down to a burning question that I had with my dad. My dad's run a mortgage broking business for years, which he's now sold, and he struggled 6 or 7 years ago to get people into work. And the main issue was he was trying to find that exact person who could come into the high street office, work 9 to 5, and be, in the traditional sense, an employee. And I was also sort of talking to him about, well, there's a lot of people who are marginalised who can't do those hours, who maybe don't live near there, maybe they struggle to, I don't know, mobility, physical mobility, maybe they can't get there. And there's a really cool untapped resource there. So we never really got to the end of that sort of conversation with him as he sold the business. But as I grow Riskbox, I'm keen to explore that myself. So what will be the subject of the table as well? For me, what do people think about the change in the working and moving from a 9 to 5 to a less regimented routine? What do people feel about working different sorts of hours, whether that's in the evening or the flexibility, the trade-off between having that flexibility to work those sort of times versus maybe you don't earn as much, but you get a better work-life balance. What do people think about adopting different technologies to try and do these things? So maybe not having all the face-to-face meeting and the face-to-face networking that traditionally we've done, maybe using things such as Zoom for video meetings instead. I want to know how people feel about that, what they see as the challenges, what they see as the ways that maybe the bridge could be divided and bridge could be crossed, and people could then find that a useful way to work. So a bit convoluted, but I think you get what I mean. The pros and cons of how to work in that sort of way.
Right, well, we're about up to coffee. I could listen to you talk all day. Luckily, those of you on the tables are going to be able to listen to these guys talk all day. But if you'd like to show your appreciation in the usual manner.
There we go. Thank you very much indeed. And will you give Steve a round of applause as well? Steve will be back with another panel very, very soon. To all our panel, sincere thanks. The conversation, as Steve said, though, continues.